Yes, that of course was Booker T and the MGs with the terrific and very old green onions. But a man who's neither green or onions or even old is my main man from Dundalk, Yankee Fachler. A big shalom, Yankee.
Shalom, welcome, hi.
Yankee, as your bio says, you're not an American. You were born in the UK. So how come you ended up in Israel?
How come I ended up in Israel? That's easy. I always wanted to go to Israel, and I took the first opportunity as soon as I finished my studies, and I went to live there, and I was there almost 30 years.
Now, as I said at the very beginning, it's quite unusual to get a program where we avoid the politics of the region, and that's what we're trying to do today, because to me, if you take the politics aside, it is actually one of the fascinating regions of the world. We're going to have a look at 3 areas where I think people might want to visit, each very different, each unique in their own way. First of all, how different is Israel to, say, Ireland? I mean, clearly the weather on a day like today, the sunshine must be attractive.
As in it cannot rain in July. Nor in June, nor in August, and nor in September. So you've got 4 or 5 months of the year, not a drop of rain. Now, that's not always an advantage either, but for people who worship the sun and who hate the rain, there's half a year when you're guaranteed no rain, another 2 or 3 months with very little rain, and it's really only the 3 months of winter when there could be rain.
So how did the local gingers get on? Now, I know there's not a lot, but there are some. Yep, it must be a bit. As I say, it must be about block factor 400 to have to go out because.
I tell you something. I lived there for nearly 30 years, and as you can see from the colour of my skin, I didn't like the sun. I didn't like the heat. That's not why I left. But the sun was always oppressive. But you live with it. You everything's air conditioned, and you cover up, and you don't do anything silly.
Yep. Let's start now. The first place I wanted to look at is clearly the obvious one, Jerusalem, the eternal city. Jerusalem, is it primarily for the religious sites that one would be attracted to?
I suppose the answer is yes, because there are just so many. It is an absolute tourist's paradise. There's everything there. I mean, you've got, no matter which faith you come from, there's going to be something there. And the close proximity in the old city of the Jewish quarter, the Armenian quarter, the Christian quarter, and the Muslim quarter means that in really very close, you've got some of the most famous and some of the most fascinating churches, mosques, synagogues, not to mention archaeological sites, which even if you had no faith or weren't interested in faith, just at the archaeology and history level alone, it's an amazing place to be.
Let's start off. What are some of the biggies then? I mean, take it from the, first of all, from the Jewish perspective. I would have said the Western Wall was...
Obviously. Yeah. This is the last remnant that is standing of the Second Temple. The Second Temple was destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans. And all that's left in terms of what was there before is that one wall. It's called the Western Wall. It's called the Wailing Wall. The reason why it's called the Wailing Wall, by the way, is that over the centuries, when there was when not many Jews were living there and not many Jews living in the Holy Land at all, any Jew that did get there would go to that wall and wail and bemoan the fact that Jerusalem's temple had gone. The Jerusalem temple is central to the prayers of Jews and has been for thousands of years.
Sure, I mean, it's a relatively quiet place now. People do pray and they put, shall we say, put suggestions perhaps into the wall itself. It's a much more civilized place in that sense.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean it's very much geared to visitors of all faiths. And any morning you happen to go there early enough, you're going to catch several bar mitzvahs at the wall, which is only in the last few years a new way of celebrating a bar mitzvah. Yep. Instead of doing it in a wedding hall, go to the actual wall and do it all there. Yep.
The other interesting facet is that when you actually are at the wall, just the other side of the wall, you see Haran al-Sharif, which is the Golden Dome, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque the other side. I mean, it's basically in your pocket, really.
Well, because everything is literally on top of each other, and several sites are actually built on previous sites that we can't see them anymore. I mean, the Dome of the Rock is on the site of a church, and the church is on the site of where the temple was. So it's actually Jerusalem, the old city, is a very small place. Makes a lot of noise.
The other, from a Christian perspective, I would have said perhaps the two really significant ones are the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and perhaps the where they had the Last Supper.
There are so many sites. And if you're a visitor, I know a lot of Christian visitors who've actually been a bit disappointed by the mainstream sites because some of them, there's still actually a lot of jockeying between different sects within the Christian movement as to who controls what square inch of which part of the church, and it can get a bit hairy.
A bit political, really, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I'm afraid so. And it's not, as a visitor, that's the last thing you want. But there are so many other places with huge significance. Visually, Jerusalem is a feast for the eyes.
Yep. Now, the other one, and I wonder, it's almost a given that any Jewish person who goes to Jerusalem visits Yad Vashem. How important do you think it would be for non-Jewish visitors to visit Yad Vashem? Because it is largely a secular monument, is it not?
Oh, it's a museum. I mean, it is an amazing museum. And I actually think it's more significant for non-Jewish people to go and get some idea of the Holocaust, what happened in the Holocaust, the amazing amount of scholarship and knowledge that we have now that we didn't have in previous decades. And just interesting enough, my wife came back just 2 days ago from a week spent exclusively at Yad Vashem doing a study course with Irish teachers of Holocaust studies. And so it's a place of study. And the museum is one of the most moving and disturbing places, but definitely a place that everyone should go to.
The other side with Jerusalem itself, I mean, is it easy to go around without coming into... The two things that struck me is that should I go this way or, what am I going to encounter in terms of just the local nuance? And is it overrun with tacky, what I would call souvenirs?
Look, you're always going to find souvenirs. It is not overburdened with tacky souvenirs. Talking about getting around, funnily enough, as we speak in the next few weeks, the long-awaited Jerusalem Lewis line.
The Lewis, I saw, when we were there, I thought, well, that's just like the Lewis, isn't it?
I tell you something, and it had the same overruns and the same arguments, and people said it would never happen, and that's going to make a massive difference because traffic in Jerusalem is horrendous.
Yep. Now, the one that I always wanted to go, and I was delighted when I did, Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv really didn't exist 100 years ago, and now to me, it's not a huge town. It's only about 500,000 people.
No, it's more.
Is it more now?
Yeah. The greater Tel Aviv area is probably about 2 million by now. Tel Aviv itself is close to 1 million. This is the absolute throbbing heart of the country.
I don't know if you'd agree with me. What it reminded me of was South Beach in Miami, except there were more Jews in South Beach.
Yeah, I actually think it's actually more cosmopolitan than that. It was one of the top 3 must-go-to cities in sorry, I've forgotten the name of the big travel guide
that
comes out. No, the other one.
Thomas Cook?
No, it'll come to me. But it's suddenly being regarded. I mean, I lived in Tel Aviv, and I knew that this was literally a city that didn't sleep. You could walk the streets as I used to, 3, 4 in the morning, and things are open. You can get something to eat, and the feeling of security is astonishing.
Yep. No, I mean, what struck me is that it's almost like being transposed not only in geography but in time. It's essentially a very European flavour, but it struck me that it's a European flavour that almost goes back to the 30s. That's a Weimar
that's
city
an
almost.
interesting. Yeah, well, that's certainly in terms of nightlife, that would be a very good comparison. The place absolutely swings and rocks.
what about the Bauhaus? Now, there's an interesting story about how Tel Aviv got its I believe it's got the greatest collection of Bauhaus architecture in the world.
It's got the largest collection because these weren't knocked down. Everywhere else in the world where they tried it, it's been knocked down. Now there are places in Ireland that were designed by the same Bauhaus-influenced architects, but the actual Bauhaus style, for some strange reason, the only place that didn't knock them down is in Tel Aviv, and they are very distinctive, rounded buildings, and very, very nice.
Yeah, I mean, in many places you would say, probably by the 50s and 60s they were saying that's a bit dated. Now we're saying,
retro is in.
Well, now it's that Deco period. It's very desirable, as we say. How? I was lucky in the sense that when I was there, a lot of I wasn't overburdened with expense in that sense of the word, particularly with Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. How would you term them in terms of tourism? Are they budget tourism? Of course you can spend a fortune. It never struck me that you could perhaps do it that cheaply. How do you feel about that?
Okay, well, you would not go for two reasons. You wouldn't want to go in August. It's very hot, and of course that is high season. But if you can manage to get away at other times of the year, there are pockets, 2 or 3 months here and 2 or 3 months there, where the prices are very, very reasonable, and you're not going to be rained out. For example, taxi prices, public transport prices are much cheaper than here. Food, the variety is much larger than here, and you'll always find what you want, from budget to haute cuisine.
That was the other bit. I mean, I was, because I'm such a finick about food.
You're a foodie.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just, I think I'm a food prejudice from all those years ago. I won't go into that one, Yankee. We haven't got enough time. But I was going to be a bit wary of the food, but I loved it. It was, people say different things, but it seems to be a really healthy diet.
It's a healthy diet, and it really combines the best of all what we know about the Mediterranean. You've got food like hummus that you're going to, and tahini that you're going to find in Lebanon and in Cyprus, and you've got a lot of olive oil, great breads, and of course the amount of fruits and vegetables that are grown there are astonishing. So they actually do. I mean, some people, when they get to Israel, are a bit surprised at what they eat for breakfast there. You go to a hotel, and I'm afraid you're not going to find an Irish fry-up. You're going to find very, very different foods. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it is much healthier.
And just in case anybody hasn't worked it out yet, it's probably not a good idea to ask for bacon and eggs.
No, but if you actually wanted, if you were dying for some pork, you will find restaurants that serve it.
Yep. Moving right along, the other place we wanted to look at, and I haven't been there, but I really fancy, is Eilat. Now, that's at the very bottom. It's on the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Tell us about Eilat.
Eilat is an absolute, total tourist destination because there ain't nothing else there. It's just an amazing beach. It is just on the corner. You can see from Eilat, you can see Saudi Arabia, you can see Egypt, you can see Jordan, which is literally next door. And it's just it's hotels, it's things to do, it's nightlife, scuba diving. They've got a terrific underwater observatory there, and they've got safari, jeep, because the desert encroaches right up to Eilat. So you can do jeep rides, camel rides. There's a lot to do there, but it is purely entertainment. There's nothing else. For example, I've got a trip planned for Christmas time, and I've got a trip planned for next month. And one is double the other. I'm paying twice as much in August as I'm paying for December.
Why is that?
Because of seasonal. In the summer, it's a very, very expensive.
Yep.
After Christmas, not before, but after Christmas, it's already off season, and then it's much cheaper.
Well, Yankee, the bit that it's difficult to get across on radio, but what I want to try and get across to people is that what struck me is that Israel is essentially a very young country, and it's also a very energetic country. So what I'm going to try and do is to convey that in sound, and this is a song just for you, Yankee.